Weights and Downer. You or someone close to you has just lost a loved one to someone's negligence. How did this happen? And why is it so hard to get information? In times like these, there is one firm who has handled hundreds of catastrophic and lost earning cases. Before you settle fast with a company's attorney, give Weights and Downer a call. 985-876-0870. Weights and Downer.
All right, welcome back to Bayou Time. Some news on the police scene here. We have First Lieutenant Blake Tabor, always coming up here and giving us some good information. Blake, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Mars. Good to see you as well.
Anytime. First of all, let's talk about the incident, the sexual assault investigation. That's another big one, so I'll give you the floor.
Absolutely. So, again, what I'd like to kind of start with this one is this was a very violent incident that resulted in the arrest of a suspect, and we're grateful that he is currently locked down and jailed with our agency where he should be. The important part to note is that we don't get these a lot to the level of violence that is displayed. Again, any sexual assault is certainly a violent situation, but this one was particularly different. So on January 15th, we learned shortly before 12 p.m. when our patrol division was called to a local area hospital in reference to a sexual assault that was reported by an over 60-year-old victim. Again, that in itself is not something we see very often, greatly so. Ultimately, the victim, who's not being identified, she alleged that Jose Alfonso Tapia Ortiz was responsible for committing the sexual assault upon her. You see him photographed here. And this occurred inside of a home in the 2600 block of Express Boulevard. The information that was relayed to our Special Victims Unit, again, our resident experts were called to the scene to take care of the incident. They learned that towards the end of 2024 was actually when the incident took place, and it took a while for the victim to report the incident for a lot of fear about what was going to happen. And a lot of this was forced upon her by the suspect in question. So ultimately, she began to give a statement to detectives, which again incorporated the fact that she had met Mr. Ortiz several weeks prior, so there was no long tenured relationship here. There wasn't a whole lot of personal knowledge between the two, but he brought her to a home in the 2600 block of Express Boulevard because she needed to rent a room. She was looking for a place to live. When he brought her there to show her a room that was allegedly for rent, she viewed that, and as she was attempting to exit the residence, of course, he pushed her into an alternate bedroom where he forced himself physically upon her. She ultimately sustained several injuries that required hospitalization as a result of the attack. She was there in excess of 10 days. So again, our detectives really sprung into action and they attempted to locate Mr. Ortiz. This particular investigation took a lot to locate him. It was a lot of in-depth investigation along with Homeland Security investigations who assisted us with this. But ultimately, they were able to find him on the night of January 30th before 8:30 p.m. where he was taken into custody at his home in 2600 block of Express.
Homeland Security, was he illegal at the time?
At this point, that's still under investigation.
Okay, gotcha.
That's still under investigation. But again, he was taken into custody that night. He was charged with second-degree rape. And I'm very happy to say that he is still incarcerated on a $250,000 bond.
Let me ask you this, because something I know fresh, so I don't know what you can say on it, but maybe we could discuss it a little bit. Y'all had a stolen vehicle that turned into more?
We did. So this one was on Sunday, again, in the early morning hours before 9:30. This incident happened where we were called to the 200 block of Ashland Drive in reference to a vehicle that was being stolen. Again, sort of an odd time of the day for a vehicle to be stolen. As our deputies quickly got to that location, they were contacted by a bunch of witnesses who were in the area on foot, who gave them information that the owner was chasing down the suspect in the vehicle. So again, the suspect is leaving the vehicle. In the vehicle, the owner is chasing him on foot. So ultimately, they began to tell deputies to arrive on Becky Drive. That's where the incident seemed to be taking place. So as our deputies got there, they quickly noted that there was a stolen vehicle crashed into the ditch, and they observed a black male suspect fleeing the area into the local wooded area directly behind the neighborhood. After that, they quickly came into contact with the owner, who provided them with some pretty vital information as to how all this was taking place. Again, they began an investigation, started looking at video surveillance footage, started putting two and two together, ultimately enlisted the help of our criminal intelligence division, who has some pretty tech-savvy ways of assisting in these types of investigations. And of course, they sprung into action, and they helped conduct a systematic search of the wooded tree line in that area, where they found an encampment inside of the wooded area, and they quickly located a suspect inside of that encampment. He was then identified as Jamar Anthony Williams Sr. You see him photographed here. And he was quickly taken into custody. They located some evidence in the form of clothing that matched the suspect description on video footage. So they pretty much concreted the fact that he was the one responsible for this. Ultimately, he was charged with theft of a motor vehicle. He is still incarcerated. That particular night, he was also arrested for a multitude of felony warrants in reference to a January 8th incident that we also investigated, where he was driving another vehicle and committed some hit and run and pursuit type activities when it came to his apprehension.
It always fits the plan when y'all pull over somebody for something a little escalated than normal. Normally there's something else
Absolutely.
that goes along with it. So sometimes you hit the trifecta, don't you?
Absolutely. And look, and on this January 8th incident, things got very violent very quickly, and he was able to escape without being apprehended that night. So that shows you how quickly things can go awry. But luckily for this instance, he was taken into custody very safely, and we're grateful for that.
All right, First Lieutenant, always good to see you. Thank you. Give the sheriff our regard, and thank y'all for the transparency.
I sure will. Thank you for having
All
us.
right, there. First Lieutenant Blake Tabor. We'll take a break. We'll have a lot more right here on Bayou Time. Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.